Our guy Dan Orlovsky joins us from ESPN now. He joins us each week throughout the playoffs, courtesy of MyBookie.ag. Code next round for that deposit bonus when you sign up at MyBookie.ag. What is up, Dan? How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
Doing awesome. Thanks a lot. Let's start in that game because we had this question yesterday, and we said we were going to ask you. I asked the question, and it's not a unique question, but everybody in the world knows they're throwing to Kelce in the red zone. Everybody in the world watching the game knows Kelce's the target here. But he is open all the time in the red zone. How does that happen?
Yeah, I mean, the simple term is he's just better talent-wise than 99% of the people who cover him. I think the detailed answer is when you play zone coverage against him, he has won a great understanding of where the weak spot of the zone is. Like there's only so many humans you have on the defense that can cover so much area of the field. So he has a great understanding of where that zone is. I think he's got phenomenal feel for color and body language. You know, like he just has a great feel for the peripheral of where color is. And I think that when you play him in man, he knows where you don't want him to go. So he gets you thinking he's going somewhere else. And, like even on the touchdown that he scored, I think it was his second one the other night against Jacksonville. Jacksonville was actually double teaming him. And he just did one little slow, subtle step with his foot and shoulder lean inside. He got both guys to step down for one step, and then he ran away from them. And you sit there and go, how do you do that? He's got his intelligence is just as good as his talent.
Dan, I was going to ask you this question before Brown asked, so I'm going to pull Kelce off the table. But best non-quarterback or most important non-quarterback this weekend, and I'm going to include Kelce.
So non-quarterbacks and Kelce are out of the conversation this weekend in that Kansas City Bengals game?
No, in both games.
Ooh, that's a great question. I would probably say Fred Warner for San Francisco, their linebacker. I think that, and I don't want to be disrespectful here, I don't think it's possible to stop Philly's offense. I mean, Philly's offense, basically on every play, there's 4 or 5 different plays in that one play. I mean, they ran 6 plays against the Giants. But each of those plays, Jalen can keep the ball. Jalen can give the ball. Jalen could be a runner. Jalen could kick it out to a flat. Jalen could kick it to a spot. I mean, there's so much. We're actually going to do this on NFL Live today is try to break it down. What's the best possible way to try and slow it down? And I think it really has to do with linebackers being able to do 2 things at once. You know, Fred's got to be able to force a give and tackle the ball carrier or force a keep and tackle Jalen while also rallying to a ball to the perimeter if they kick it outside. So, man, I think the stress that's going to be on Fred to play so great, not only in the box, but also sideline to sideline is tremendous.
Most people who watch the NFL and watch our show, and all of us who do this, did not play football at a high level. So in our minds, maybe it's the Madden game or something where receivers are running these straight line routes. How much of it is ad-lib and just nuance, like you were talking of Kelce, of Phil, and the quarterback relationship, or is it true routes that you run as a receiver?
Yeah, there's rules guys and guidelines guys. I mean, there are some guys that they are doing what you see on the paper. When you do an install, and they got to follow rules, because if you give them gray area or if you give them guidelines and give them freedom, they screw your quarterback more often than not. Guys that, you tell them, listen, man, you're running a 3-step slant and you keep running on that angle until the play is over. There's just guys that have to fit that world. And then there's guidelines guys that you show them what the paper is. And then you could say, well, listen, if this happens, you have the ability to do this. Kelce is absolutely a guidelines guy. Juju Smith-Schuster's got a little bit of guidelines guy to him. Mecole Hardman, probably for the Chiefs, is a little bit of a rules guy. I don't know him, but I'm guessing just because of his straight line speed. I think A.J. Brown is a little bit of a rules guy. That's because he's a physical freak. Lance Moore for the Saints was a great guidelines guy. So there's a good amount of guys. Deebo Samuel, guidelines guy. Like you just got to trust some of those natural instincts that these guys have acquired, growing up. But it's got to be very individualized. Like a perfect example is Dallas and CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee, I would make the case, should be a rules guy. I think Dallas gives him too much guideline, and I think he's got too much freedom, and I think that hurt them multiple times this year. And while he's graded some choice routes, if you give him too many options, there's a lot to cover in a short period of time.
Dan Orlovsky, ESPN, with us for a few more moments. He's joining us throughout the playoffs on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline, courtesy of MyBookie.ag, where right now the Eagles are -2.5 and the Bengals are -1.5 in the 2 championship games this weekend. MyBookie.ag, code next round.
Bengals are favored, huh?
Bengals are just moved to favorite. I mean, that's got to tell you, a lot of the people, at least in Vegas, Dan, do not think Mahomes is playing or is 100%. I mean, playing, yes, but not playing 100%.
Yeah, I mean, high ankles are brutal. They're absolutely brutal. I think Patrick is as tough as they come. My brain can't wrap around the concept of Patrick Mahomes losing to the same person 4 times in a row. I can't fathom it. I don't know if I'll get there by Sunday. I hope he's as healthy as possible, because he's the best player we have in the NFL.
But this Bengals team does not fear any stadium in the NFL. I mean, they do not fear it. In fact, it seems like they thrive on having to go on the road.
Yeah, their quarterback, man. Their quarterback's an assassin, I'll never forget. I called the national title game in 2019, LSU versus Clemson. I was Team Trevor Lawrence going into it. I called it on the MegaCast on the field. It was me, McAfee, Steve Levy, and I just remember walking out of that game and just honestly taken aback and being like, this Joe Burrow guy, he looked like an assassin. Like there was just everything about him. And I think the team has taken on that aura. I think Zach Taylor, who I know a little bit, has taken on that aura. There's also the reality that their defense is as well coached as anybody. They've got plenty of talent. They're very game plan specific. And they know that because of the quarterback, they have a chance against everybody in the NFL. And there's only like 2 or 3 teams that can really say that.
Hey, I heard you, I think it was yesterday on Get Up, say that you believe Joe Burrow is the best quarterback, not necessarily the best player. I would agree with you.
Not a popular thing to say.
No, but I'll tell you, I think you're dead on. I've said it for a couple of months now. I mean, the guy is incredible. And I was just going to ask you, nobody wants to be compared to Tom Brady. And it's really early in Burrow's career, but when you look at mentality, skill set, swagger, I mean, to me, he's the closest thing we've seen.
Yeah, totally. And I think the thing, and this is what I was trying to get across, is I can explain everything that Joe Burrow does. I can explain it. I cannot explain stuff that Patrick does. That Patrick does stuff that is undeniable. I can't break it down on an X's and O's. I can't teach people it. Everything Joe does, you can teach. He just does it, and he's the only one who does it, all of it at a high level. And that was the point. It wasn't like one guy's a white dude, one dude's a black dude. One guy's a pocket guy, one guy's not a pocket guy. But when you look at all the traditional like bullet points of quarterbacking that has always been taught from day one, Joe excels at. Patrick does as well, but he has also like the ad-lib that Joe does not have. And Joe does all of those bullet points consistently better than Patrick does. So like one guy, their styles are very different. And I just think that like quarterbacking wise, when it comes to just traditional stuff, Joe right now is doing it the best. Patrick's still the best player. And I think both those things could be true.
Well, your favorite wine, is that an Oregon Pinot behind you, your right shoulder, or the other side?
No, you know what? I don't think so. I think that is my favorite wine depends on the time of the year. This is a Roman ceremony. I have no idea how much. It's a cab.
It's a cab. I was going to ask you.
It's cold out, so
it's funny that he brought that up because I was going to say I've never met you, but I can tell you're disciplined because that would never be on my counter. You drank one glass.
Yeah, one glass.
One glass a day.
Yep.
That's pretty impressive because once
that
thing gets open.
I always used to joke. Like before my wife and I have 4 kids. We have triplets, 11-year-old boys and a 7-year-old daughter. I used to always joke before we had kids. I used to hear people say like, can't wait to like just get home and have a glass of wine or something. I used to be like, yo, your life's that bad, you need a drink after work or something, or like you need to have a glass of wine. And then we had kids, and I was like, I cannot wait to have a glass of wine. So I'm that person now.
All right, he is Dan Orlovsky. Follow him on Twitter at Dan Orlovsky7. See him on ESPN throughout the week breaking down the AFC and NFC championship game. He's with us through the playoffs, courtesy of MyBookie.ag. Thanks a lot, Dan. Have a great week.
Appreciate you guys.
All right, buddy. We'll see you next week. Dan with us on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline. As I mentioned, right there at MyBookie.ag, you will find, Dan, a little surprised by this, Cincinnati now the favorite. 1.5. Eagles favored 2.5 in the NFC Championship game. You can get down on that action this weekend. Open up an account, deposit $50, and you're eligible for a sign-on bonus. You bet it one time, it's yours. Not 10 times, 6 times, 8 times like other places. One time, and it is yours. MyBookie.ag, code next round. MyBookie.ag, code next round.